That's right. It's me. It's McLean. 2 days in a row, which I don't think that's happened since I did a 40 days straight partner push back in 2020. Or was it 2019? Getting a little old. Anyway, yeah, what's up, Kim Slayer? Endgame Alert, Half Bitten Taco. How are you guys doing? Sorry while I move my microphone. That must sound awful. I mean, I wasn't originally going to stream tonight, but then this thing dropped. And I thought, I want to talk about this while it's fresh. I'm going to assume that most people watching have at least had a chance to read this. Or read some of it. Or read things that people have written about it on Twitter or whatever. Bit sad about the direction the behavior is taking DBD. So, what do you think that this says? Like, what is the direction? What is the direction that you think this is taking it in? I haven't drawn any conclusions myself yet. I'd like to feel out the vibe first. I know parts of it already. I was a little busy today, so I didn't go in depth. I haven't read every perk change. I skimmed a few of the highlights. Yo, what's up, Charlie? I'm also eager to hear my thoughts on this. So eager that it's 11:15, and me, an old guy, here drinking my coffee and streaming in the middle of the night when I should be going to bed. They tried to make the killer experience better at the expense of Survivor's experience, especially holding M1 for longer. I'm not sure what you mean by holding M1 for longer. You mean like doing longer lunges? Oh, I see what you mean. Yes. Make survivors hold M1 longer. Yeah. That's definitely a big and kind of contentious point, I guess. Yeah. Yo, what up, Godhand Griffith? Yeah, straight up Polo G in short. More gen time. Undeniable. It's been so great on the internet lately. All these young people love to write purple messages about how much they love me. Like, I thought that my popularity fell off after I left the DBD team, but all of a sudden, they're throwing around fun little nicknames about me and everything.
At mclean_yep, it's good to see you streaming. How was your day?
Well, it's better now, above the law. Thank you very much. How are you doing? No, it was. I mean, yeah, it was a good day for me. I'm a bit of a normie now. I wake up, I go to my job that's not a popular online game. I work out at the gym. I kiss my wife. We have dinner. Like pretty standard stuff. And then once she falls asleep, I hop on my computer and fucking talk about DBD developer update. Vika says, I like the direction. It seems to me like they want killers to become better in chase and therefore not require less interactive gen regression. Yeah, no, we're definitely going to get into what is the message that they're trying to send with this. And more importantly, is the message that the changes are sending? Is the message that the changes together are sending the same one that they say that they're trying to send? So we're going to dig into it. I'll start just like before we even get into what the details of the changes are. I would say it's very encouraging to see that this late in a game's lifetime, let's not forget, the game's been out for 6 years. Out for 6 years. Remember, it was cooking for a while before that. So we're talking about a very old project at this point. That they've decided, yeah, they're going to shake things up. They're going to tackle some sacred cows, you might say. Things that you thought were off the table are back on, right? Anything goes. The possibility, like the hints about what this could mean for the future are perhaps as exciting as what these changes actually are. Hello, Liam. What the heck are you doing awake? Go to bed. Like bringing back traps under hooks? God damn it, Kreese, that's exactly the kind of outside-the-box thinking I was looking for. Hell yeah, bring back traps under hooks. We brought back trap buffering like 3 years ago, when it didn't matter. Nobody even knows what trap buffering was or what it was for. For the record, back when you would trap under the hook, and you could only unhook from one spot directly in front of the hook, so the trapper would put the trap there, and you'd have to undo the trap before you could rescue. The really smart players would take 2 people to the hook, and one of them would start undoing the trap while somebody else could step on it because it couldn't trap you if it was being disarmed. That was some cool shit. You can't not watch this. Alright, well, I'll try to make it good. I'll try to make it good. Remember when you could trap the hook twice? What does that mean? Did you know anything about this patch? Or was it a surprise for me too? No, I don't get inside information. I mean, we knew that a 39 perk change was coming. We didn't know what they were until today, I guess. Okay, what were my other initial thoughts? So it's very good that they're being bold. That being said, with such a large amount of boldness and willingness to shake things up, I think we're definitely going to be, pardon the expression, throwing out some babies with the bathwater. The flip side of the project being so old is that a lot of things that existed were made by people who aren't around anymore and aren't there to explain why they were the way that they were. Yeah, we knew which perks were going to be changing, but we didn't know what the changes were going to be, Grim. Although, Robert, I can tell you that when I left, this wasn't really cooking yet. Like me, for example. Look, I didn't want to paint too fine a line on it or anything. I'm pretty sure I just massacred that expression. But yes, for example, there were a few things in here where I thought, well, I probably would have made some comments, not necessarily like stopped a thing from happening, but like, I wonder what they would have said to the feedback that I would have had about the change, out of curiosity. Alright. So I mean, yeah, changes take a long time to make, but typically changing a bunch of perks, you wouldn't hold on to those for a whole year before releasing. A lot of the reason why, let's say, making a killer can take such a long time is because you're gonna need to iterate on prototypes, and then there's a whole bunch of art stuff. Like, there are a lot of different disciplines that come together to make a killer, not all of whom are necessarily involved in updating perks. Murder of Crows, that goes back a long time. I mean, hell, if what you mean is, did some of these perk ideas come out of discussions that happened many years ago? Yes. Certainly. A lot of the time, ideas that you've heard floating, or that you've heard or that you proposed or something, a lot of people can come up with the same ideas independently. We are not quite so unique as we would like to believe that we are. Rest in peace, MOC. How many Murder of Crows alums do I have here in the chat tonight? And it's not fair either, because some of you guys have different names now, so I can't even recognize you. I recognize you, though, Fire Rose. What's up? Been a long time. Robert Twins, gotcha. I guess your name's not that different. Okay, are we done beating around the bush? Shall we jump into it? I guess for the benefit of those who are wondering what the hell MOC is, or Murder of Crows is, This is long enough ago that I feel comfortable talking about it. Back in September, I would say. It was fall of 2016 when we the DBD team ended up sort of putting out a little outreach to get more directly in touch with players. Not in a secret way. It was like discreet. We like tried to like keep it more or less on the down low, but it wasn't NDA. It wasn't like a secret necessarily. So we put together some players, people who either were like well known, or that we knew and trusted, or that we thought were very good. Threw people together in a Discord server just to have like good conversations. These people didn't get any kind of insider info. We just wanted to have a better line of communication with them. And that was actually one of the initiatives that I undertook. That was a long time ago, though. As the project matured, so too did the process of community management and collecting player feedback and stuff like that. So that just like a really like informal public Discord server kind of wasn't really the right format anymore. So it eventually kind of withered and went the way of Discord servers that aren't needed anymore. You're not enjoying it ever since matchmaking and hit validation? But the hit validation got better. Are you saying that the matchmaking made your experience so much worse that it doesn't account for the fact that the hit validations are better now? Early Fog Whisperer, kind of not really. Nah, people didn't get any glory for it. And maybe like a little bit of bragging rights to their immediate friends. I would say it wasn't really, like, it didn't really help them out. Fog Whisperers is a partnership, right? People put on a good face and promote the game, and then in turn they get a lot of exposure, from the DBD team. It wasn't like that really. It was really just to chat about the game, get a perspective from players directly to the team. I'm not sure how much of, and for example, the flip side of that is I don't really know how much of that Fog Whisperers do these days. Obviously, they're going to have a more open line of communication to the dev team than your average player, because they're communicating with them on account of Fog Whisperer stuff. But Fog Whisperer stuff is usually a bit more, I don't know. I'm assuming mine do. This was not my job. But that's kind of like promotion and scheduling and that kind of talk. Not necessarily inviting everyone in to like have a design jam, Why isn't Dead Man Switch on this list? You're asking the wrong guy, Liam. Alright, we should probably get started or we're never going to get through all the changes. So, during the 6th anniversary broadcast, we announced a new progression system and meta-shifting perk overhaul. Thrilled to say that both initiatives will headline the upcoming mid-chapter. From the onset, it was important for us to release the changes as a package. Our objective is to shake up the current meta, provide alternatives, and make perks easier to earn. Also careful to consider the reasons why this meta exists and address any base game issues it may have been concealing. We'll see about that. Let me know if the balance of music and voice is good, by the way. I'm trying to judge it based on my equalizer, but man, I'm bad at that, so I always welcome a little subjective feedback. We're gonna remove our band-aid fixes. Yeah, I can appreciate ripping off some band-aids and seeing what the wound looks like underneath. So yeah, let's see. Overhauled progression system. Voice could be a little louder. Well, what? Just turn up your volume, friend. I don't want to peak my mic. How does buffing Bloodlust? Yeah, we're gonna get there. I did hear about that. All right, so right off the bat, I think that this is a pretty uncontroversially good change, right? The progression system changes. So right now, what happens is that you get to level 40 and you unlock all the teachable perks for a character, and now you have the right to find those perks on every other character's blood web, but nothing else. Looks like they did some math. You have to grind 4.1 hours every day to get the perks on every character by the time the next chapter releases, which is, hey, for some of you that might seem like not much, but believe me, not everyone's able to do that. They buffed Bloodlust? Yeah, like I said, we're getting there. Peaking mic adds to the experience? Yeah, I used to think that if my mic wasn't in the yellow zone, I wasn't talking loud enough. But I was wrong. Yeah, no, some people can go hard. You know, some people are real dedicated gamers, and good good for you. So yeah, what do we got here? A reduction of roughly 75%. And I guess they didn't want to get too deep in the weeds on the math here. They did mention once that it was a sort of an exponential growth. There we go. So I guess they didn't really want to dig into this too much. Really, like, the number one, like, bad thing was that every chapter would take longer to unlock everything for than the previous chapter. Because every character brings new stuff to unlock in every other character, as well as a new character to unlock everything on. It's a geometric progression. So now it's flat, right? Every new chapter, all you have to do is prestige 2 characters, and you're done. That's it. Teachable rarity is no more. Perks are now tied directly to prestige. Prestiging a character for the first time instantly unlocks the tier 1 version of that perk for all other Killers or Survivors, making them immediately available for use without even opening the blood web. Sick, I like it. Prestiging the character for a second and third time will unlock tier 2 and 3 versions of their unique perks. Alternatively, higher tier versions of the perk will appear randomly in blood webs once the first tier has been unlocked. So this part, let me put it this way. I can't think of a better alternative, but I will point out the weird awkward zone, where once you have unlocked tier 1, or rather once you've, like, we need a better word than unlocked now. once you've acquired tier 1 of a perk, suddenly you kind of have like you've got a weird decision to make where it's like, oh, I guess I could go into my other characters and just grind out tier 2 and 3 of it. If I wanted to, instead of prestiging this guy again. But it's hard to quantify exactly how much work it'll take to get those perks via doing them in the blood of the character that you care about versus just prestiging the source character again to unlock it for everybody. And that kind of like nebulous choice that's very hard to evaluate makes me a little bit uncomfortable. It's a pretty corner case though, because in the majority of circumstances, it should be very clear that it is more advantageous to just go and finish prestiging. So it's a minor issue. I don't have any better idea or anything. I just wanted to point out, like, this is the one thing that kind of nags at the back of my brain when I read this. Shrine is dead? Not at all, actually. They came up with a very nice solution for the shrine. Did they mention it here? Yeah, we're going to get to the shrine. So no more resets. So prestiging no longer resets all of your gear, right? You don't lose your add-ons or anything like that. You're good to go. Just keep prestiging. This is a little weird. I guess it'll be fun to watch your blood webs grow, go from small to big over and over again. I guess. Personally, I think that this opens up the opportunity to bring back the level 50 full blood web. I want to see it go from tiny little blood webs at level 1 to the complete, full, every single node blood web at level 50. And then reset. I mean, it'll average out. For those who don't know, back in 2016 when the game launched, that's what you would see once you were at maximum blood web level. Max level blood webs filled every node. Every single node. I missed that. I say, bring it back. Don't be a coward. If you want, only make the level 50 one like that, right? Have them slowly ramp up in size. Level 50, full blood web. It'll be a sight to behold, right? Every 50 levels, you'll get to see the full one. You're like, nice. I missed you. Missed you. Wouldn't full blood web be a little bit too much without barbecue and we're going to live forever? Absolutely not. And we're going to get to those two, but that's something that had to happen, and that was a band-aid that had to be ripped off. So let's say that you were a perfect barbecue grinder. Always had barbecue, always had your we're going to live forever stacks, right? And it was doubling the points that you get. Well, now the grind is reduced by 3/4. You're coming out ahead without running that perk. You're still going to be going through it faster than before if you were running barbecue. Way faster with the new mechanics. Ah, hello, Ethan. It's not okay that we're going to live forever. Got a second strong effect in barbecue. Nothing. I actually have some notes about barbecue, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. We're going to get there, although at this rate, it's going to take me all night. Still a good perk? Yeah. Honestly, I'm not okay, fuck. We're going to talk about barbecue now. I'm not concerned about barbecue's power level. Although I'm going to put this caveat out here now that I'm not concerned primarily with balance and power level so much as I am about design and psychology. Barbecue keeping the aura reveals is good. I think that the aura reveals off barbecue are strong and fun. But not only did it lose the blood point incentives, it lost the well, let me check before I wreck myself. Barb. Right. So okay. So it loses the points doubling effect, which it had to do. However, what I'm not super happy about is that it didn't get anything to replace the token building, the incentive for hooking survivors for the first time. It definitely had to lose the points doubling. It was completely warping the entire progression system around itself. I think that introducing single perks that would double your point gain was a mistake back then. I think that having perks and add-ons, any sort of modular gameplay elements that would give you blood point rewards is good. Was good. This one, I think, was kind of like a band-aid that was shining a spotlight on the real issue, which was the blood point cap per category. And this is ancient history now. This might be interesting to some people. You might be wondering, why is there a cap per category? And this goes way back. I'm doing this all out of order now. I was hoping that we'd have some other talks before we got here, but we're talking about barbecue now. So there was a blood point cap per category when we launched because the blood points were used for rank progression. And to stop players from only doing one kind of thing in a game, which would be boring, the points were capped. You would get a maximum of 5,000 points per category, and you needed 10,000 in order to get your pip. That's how it worked back then. Now, the blood points were eventually uncoupled from the rank progression. But the blood point caps per match stayed because it would have been, I guess, it was like too many changes at the same time to try to rip that out. Also. And that never really got back around to it. Introducing offerings in the puddings and party streamers and stuff like that, and these perks, barbecue and chili, and we're gonna live forever, that circumvented those limits, really made it clear that the limits were problematic. And as far as I can tell, there's nothing in this update that addresses them. So I'm hoping that in the future, something will be done about those. Because what I noticed was that because of the caps, all of the non-point doubler extra point bonuses, you know, your little add-ons that would give you 200 points for making survivors scream when you blink through them or whatever, or even your speed limiters and such, were never going to catch on because you would hit your cap way too fast. And in the end, you were only giving yourself a hard time without really getting the extra rewards. So these guys came along and kind of like circumvented that problem, and unfortunately made every non-point doubling effect seem pretty much useless in comparison. Now, when we come to this barbecue and chili change, they just removed the extra blood points. I think they had to go. But like we said before, there's nothing to replace the incentive for good play, which was present in building tokens, right? Getting those stacks by finding each survivor. And I think it was a very healthy thing to encourage that behavior. And I think that barbecue and chili could even still grant you blood points. And in fact, what I was really hoping for was that barbecue and chili would, let's say, give you an extra 1,000 points for each person that you hook. And that the update would also include something to either getting rid of the per category caps or adjusting them or something along those lines, such that this new flat blood point bonus and every other flat blood point bonus for things that you do in the match could become relevant. So yeah, we skipped ahead a little bit. That's my feedback on barbecue and chili. I think that psychologically speaking, the lack of stack building and good player behavior incentives hurts it. I'm sad to see the loss. The double blood points had to go, but I think that losing the stacks hurts it, and that it could be brought back in a healthy fashion. Doesn't category cap promote gameplay variety? It could be argued. I don't think that we have that sort of the same kind of problem with this that we used to.
Nurse. Flashlight. We got it, baby. Isn't that sick?
Ew, gross, what's this $5 doing here? No thank you, get rid of it for me.
You people always making me take your trash dollars. Fine. Just this once, Imbecilicus. I'll take care of that for you. Alright. Let's get back to where we were. We were talking about prestige and unlocking and resets. A thing that, as far as I can tell, is almost entirely good. Bring back blood-covered survivor decal for barbecue specifically and make that the stack thing. Blood-covered survivor. Are you talking about the like dirty like survivor effect that kind of like slipped into a PTB once because it was being tested? If we didn't want to mess with blood point caps directly, category blood point caps, because we didn't want to rock the boat, which is understandable. It is I mean, there's a lot of boat rocking here going on, but like if you didn't want to rock that boat, essentially what you could do is round up all of the blood point bonuses and put them in a bonus category that's uncapped. So that way, you know, you don't have a guy who just does generators and never does anything else and gets a bajillion points. You could have all your, you know, this wouldn't help the guys that are like, oh, get 25% extra, like, what is it, like 25% extra, like hunter points or whatever you get from distressing or whatever the fuck it is. Sorry, I forget. But basically, it would make it a lot easier to target specific actions that you want people to do and say, here's some points. Basically, this would require an uncapped bonus blood point category, which I'm pretty sure already exists. Correct me if I'm wrong. You guys are paying closer attention than I am. Thank you for the posture check, New Bloodder. I know, I'm going to be here all night, Kai. Gotta stay hydrated. Event hooks and stuff are uncapped and separate. Yeah, alright. So I think that's the like, if we're not going to go so deep as to tackle the category caps, then I think we need to move all of these perk and add-on blood point bonuses into uncapped, or either. Okay, so here's the thing: we can do two things. Into a completely uncapped category. Actually, no. Here's what we do. Here's my proposal. I'm going to use an imaginary version of barbecue and chili. McLean and chili. Where you still build stacks. The stacks are mostly just to let you know how many survivors you've done this to. Every time you hook a survivor for the first time, essentially you get a token and you get, let's say, 1,000 bonus blood points. The bonus blood points don't count towards any cap; they're uncapped. So that one's fine. You can get 4,000 extra points in a game with it. The number could be higher or lower. I don't care. I'm using 1,000 because it's nice and round. McLean and Chilli, exactly. Now, the potential danger of an uncapped point category would be in stuff like the nurse has an add-on that you blink through somebody and make them scream and get 200 points for scaring them. The technology already exists to put diminishing returns and hard caps on how many points you can get for doing the same event multiple times per game. This is another reason why I think that category caps are not really necessary anymore, but that's neither here nor there. That technology could easily be rolled out to make sure that you can't just sit there with a nurse blinking through somebody to get 200 points for 5 seconds forever. So the tools already exist. This is the direction I would like to see them go. Why does the million blood point cap exist? Look, I don't know what the recent line on it is, but back in my day, the million blood point limit was there to encourage people to spend their points. And if people are forced, straight up, your hands are tied, your arm is bent behind your back, you gotta spend your points. It'll mean that you're going to have a bunch of stuff, and are, if even just a little bit, more likely to try new stuff because you've got it, even if you wouldn't otherwise have spent points to get it. The other thing is that getting people to spend the points means they don't have a huge stockpile when new content comes out. People needing to grind the points when the content comes out means that a lot of people are playing together at the same time when content comes out. And that gives a pretty good rhythm. That you get a whole bunch of people who come in and everyone's playing more around the same time. You do get a sort of rejuvenating effect every time new content comes out, because you also get a whole bunch of people who are coming in and playing more at the same time. So it's good for the health of the game in the rhythm of releases, and it's normal for player counts to drop a little bit in between new stuff. So this really helps keep the wave going. I understand it's very annoying when you're playing. You're like, how come this thing keeps forcing me to break my break my streak of games and actually slow down and buy some stuff. I understand it is kind of annoying. I believe that the thing about inconvenience for hackers is more of a urban legend. So there's new prestige rewards. We're gonna have to speed through the rest of this stuff. Prestiging 1, 2, and 3 unlocks those characters' perks at level 1, 2, and 3 for all other characters. No blood orb required. Good, cool, love it. The bloody clothes are moved to prestige levels 4, 5, and 6. Cool. And prestige level 7, 8, and 9. I really like this. Perks as a charm. This, I feel like this should maybe be like, they should be selling this a little bit harder. The fact that you can now get like your favorite perks as charms that you can just show off and stuff like that, love to see it. As always, I'm a little bit frustrated because charms are a system that work for killers and do not work for survivors. Maybe not everybody shares this opinion. This is a personal opinion. I think that it just straight up comes down to the visibility of the damn things, where hook charms, killers see them every time they go up to them. Survivors are forced to see them when they're hooked. It's actually, that works really well. Every time you hook a survivor, they have nothing to do but look at the charms that you picked. Killer charms work. Survivor charms are tiny. Other survivors never look at your charms. They don't care. And to be honest, as a killer, there's so much else going on that the chance that you're going to notice a charm on a survivor as you're chasing them is not zero, but pretty small. Once you've hooked them, you don't typically stand around, checking out what their cosmetic charms are. You could if you wanted, but there's no mechanic that ever puts the visual emphasis on them like it does for killer charms. What if survivors just got a single giant charm on their back? I don't know about that, but I have often thought to myself, maybe a couple of times on stream, essentially to make the charms large enough to be visible, you're basically going to have to restrict survivors to 1, which I think would probably be fine. Your idea for barbecue. Barbecue shows auras outside of about 40 meters. What if barbecue gives you killer instinct for 6 seconds within 10 meters per token around the hook when you hook a survivor? So you can't hide close to the hook to outplay barbecue. Well, okay, so 2 points about that, Liam. Point number 1, granted, the fact that you build tokens, but the tokens don't have any effect other than just telling you how often a thing has happened, unsatisfying. People like to build up tokens on a perk, get their stacks, because typically there's a payoff for the stacks that you haven't already gotten, necessarily. So I give you this. It would be nice for it to have an effect that integrates the tokens somehow. As for punishing people for being close enough, I'm not super sold on that part. I don't think that was necessarily a problem. Remember, the philosophy of barbecue originally was to show people far away so that the killer would go far away from the hook. Just get away from it, please. Here's something else that will legitimately entice you to leave. Could be that tokens increase the length of the aura reading. See, I think that's a great idea, Slimeball Steve. A+, honestly. Well done. Yes, there you go. Now you guys are cooking with gas. The perk doesn't even need the bonus blood points as much as it needs the stacks and the incentive to rotate which survivors you hooked. The better the incentive, the more a killer will be tempted to hook a new person instead of just hooking the same person, which is very important because in default gameplay, it's much more valuable to hook the same person again, because getting a survivor out of the game early is like the #1 strongest thing you can do to try to guarantee yourself a win in the end. So, offering incentives that are good enough to maybe get a few people to do that a little bit less, I think is a great idea. At that point, if you were giving it some kind of gameplay effect that was important enough on the stacks, it might get too busy if you also had some bonus blood points in there. So like I said, the bonus blood points, not strictly necessary. It would just be nice to show as an example of the previous flagship blood point perk, that it could be an ambassador for the new philosophy of how to get bonus blood points out of perks and add-ons. The flat bonuses that, while they do circumvent the category caps, aren't uncapped multipliers. Reasonable blood point bonuses. Alright, so like we mentioned before, the Shrine of Secrets is not dead, it's actually way better than it was. It does what I kind of always hoped it would do. Unlike before, where the Shrine of Secrets would offer teachable perks that then needed to be found in Bloodwebs, the Shrine will now allow you to purchase perks directly. Purchasing a perk through the Shrine of Secrets will make the Tier 1 version of it immediately available on all killers or survivors, much like Prestige, and then subsequent tiers of the perk will also begin appearing in Bloodwebs. So basically, buying the perk is like just a slightly smaller version, a single perk version, of prestiging the character that you don't have. Or I guess it actually becomes possibly worthwhile to do it for characters that you do have, although it becomes irrelevant if you later prestige that character. But maybe it'll save you a bit of time. I don't know. Like I said, some of these very difficult to parse decisions make me like a little bit itchy. They feel like unsolved design problems, but they're pretty minor. Like overall, the improvement here is so big that I am willing to overlook a large number of these like small irritations. Perks should evolve with tokens, like seeing people inside lockers once you get 4 stacks or seeing them for more time. Yeah. I like the, it was nice and simple of increasing the aura read time per stack. And this is pretty cool. You can purchase a perk again on the Shrine of Secrets. I assume you can only purchase it once per week to increase its tier. So let's say that you've already played 15,000 hours of Dead by Daylight. What does this update have for you? Spending many hundreds, if not thousands of hours, yeah, I already said that, over the years, we want to make sure that everyone is rewarded fairly. When the system releases, we'll be automatically rewarding existing players an appropriate number of prestige levels based on how many perk tiers they've unlocked. If you've left all your characters at level 50 and focused on unlocking perks, your work won't be for nothing. It's also important that you don't lose anything when the system is updated. You'll keep any perks and bloody prestige cosmetics that you've already unlocked. Those who reach Prestige 3 before the update will receive a special Prestige icon to recognize their achievements. Now, special Prestige icon. Is this going to be the new legacy? Is this going to show in the tally screen? Most people are going to have just like a regular icon that shows their Prestige. But if you had that Prestige before the update, you have a cool guy legacy icon or something like that. And immediately, people are going to start asking when they can get that. Yeah, it's Legacy 2.0. Matchmaking incentives. Matchmaking has been a major focus of the past year. We're maintaining that throughout year 7. Though many changes are planned to improve wait times and match quality, there are variables that we can't control through code. Chief among them is the distribution of people playing each role. There's simply not enough people queuing for one role, killer. The matchmaker's ability to create quality matches suffers. Being an asymmetrical game, Dead by Daylight works best when there's roughly 4 survivors to each killer. If this 4-to-1 ratio deviates too far, matchmaking time and quality will start to degrade. Too many survivors will cause survivor queue times to increase, while too few survivors will cause killer queue times to increase. Yeah, most people understand how that works. Do you have a record on how much BP we spent on killer or survivor? I don't. I don't think players can. Maybe if there's a way to like read your Steam stats, you might be able to find it. Behavior definitely knows. To complicate things, this ratio varies greatly depending on your region, rating, and time of day. In some regions, we've observed an excess of survivors queuing, while in others, too few. I bet there are more with too many survivors, but I do know for a fact it's true that sometimes it is the inverse. So, they're going to introduce matchmaking incentives. Whenever the number of killers to survivors differs too much from the ideal ratio, we'll offer a blood point bonus to anyone who opts to play the needed role. This bonus ranges from 25% to 100% depending on demand levels. The bonuses will be shown on the main menu beside each role's play button, as well as beside the ready button. These bonuses double as an indicator of which role currently has the fastest queue times. If you want to get into a match as soon as possible, keep an eye out for incentives. So, this is simultaneously a bigger and smaller deal, I guess, than it sounds. Like, this is not going to single-handedly fix queue times in situations where they were previously broken. You can offer your Survive with Friends squad as many blood points as you want to play killer, and I suspect that it's more likely to make them just not want to play at all because they'll be depressed at how many blood points they're losing out on, rather than switch to killer and play by themselves a role that they didn't want to play today. That being said, it will probably entice some number of players. So it will create an improvement. It will probably keep... Alright, so the next thing that we need to do is try to predict the effect that it has on currently existing killer players. Are they going to play longer? Are they going to play more matches because they're getting a shit ton of extra blood points? Or is it more likely to have them reach the amount of points they were trying to get, which is now an actual attainable goal, faster, causing them to, in the end, play fewer matches and have the opposite of the intended effect? It remains to be seen. Playing in a group can net you a bonus if survivors are needed at the time. This will only apply if your group's average matchmaking rating is currently in demand. That's complicated. I'm surprised they were able to fix this. Heads up, matchmaking incentives will be disabled if crossplay is turned off. As most players play with crossplay on, the system would be highly susceptible to manipulation, and switching roles would have a negligible effect on matchmaking. Yeah, play with crossplay on, basically. $39 perks, getting changed. Let's get into it. Wait, before we can get to the perks, the base game changes. When looking at the perks most used by killers, there's a very clear trend. Any perk that helps prevent generators from being powered, slowdown perks for short, are favored. Corrupt Intervention, Pop Goes the Weasel, Scourge Hook Pain Resonance, and Hex Ruin are a few notable examples, and each are amongst the most popular perks. Many players feel like generators are powered too quickly without these perks, so we know we needed to look at generators before making any perk changes. Slowdown perks should be an option, but not the only option to stay competitive. So, increase the time it takes to power a generator to 90 seconds, up from 80. That's honestly a huge deal. Very large deal. Hi, Ethan, you're still here. Okay. I mean, that obviously makes me nervous. I'm going to say some things that are very obvious, that I think anybody watching, you can safely assume that the developers have thought about this and talked about this 100 times. But I'm going to just put them out there anyway. We start at the beginning of the discussion. This is mostly going to add some extra time. Okay. DBD matches kind of happen in phases, where you sort of have this quiet first phase, and what often happens is that you'll do like a chase or something, and then a number of generators will get completed in a short amount of time, because probably at the beginning of the game, 2 or 3 were started, right? While maybe 1 or 2 survivors are engaged with the killer. This is a big generalization, but a typical game might progress that way. So right off the bat, this will add, whatever, okay, it adds like 10 seconds or so before that starts happening. Probably a kind of subtle change. This change will become a lot more apparent with the other added change of improved base regression. Because there's a bigger bucket to fill, you have a lot more opportunity to come over and kick the bucket and decharge it. I'm sorry, I'm torturing the metaphor now. Essentially, these two changes are very strong together. Kicking a generator now instantly removes 2.5% of the maximum progress. So this is a knob. This is not a new idea, right? In that this is something that was always possible. The value was set to 0. I feel like this was an option that the team had in its back pocket ever since kicking generators was first introduced. Not when the game came out. A lot of people forget this, but when we shipped in 2016, generator times were 60 seconds, and you could not kick. So, fun times. It's interesting. It certainly punishes tapping gens that are regressing. You could get into some weirdness where somebody taps it and the killer kicks it, and somebody taps it and the killer kicks it, and you get like a heck of a lot of regression all at once. But I'm open to it. In general, I do agree that for the time investment, kicking a generator, especially if you didn't know how long the regression was going to be up for, rarely felt worth it. So this seems like a pretty positive change, just in terms of giving a player more things to do that they feel are worth their time. Again, I'm kind of approaching this more from a psychological than a strictly balance point of view. For one thing, I don't have the relevant numbers in front of me, so I couldn't tell you whether killers need to be stronger or survivors need to be stronger or some perk is dramatically overperforming. All I have available to me is, how do I think this is going to make people feel when they read it, and how do I think it's going to make people feel when they play it? So. I wonder if it would help, perhaps, to describe the 2.5% of progress in terms of, like, seconds of typical progress. Because I would have to bust out a calculator to check exactly how much time 2.5% of 90 seconds actually takes. That's 2.25 seconds. Anyway. So we got some general killer improvements. Average kill rates are a little lower than the developers would like to see. A sentiment echoed by many community members. No comment. To ensure the killer feels like an unstoppable force to be feared, we're making slight improvements to many aspects of killer gameplay. Reduce the time it takes to break walls and pallets by 10% to 2.34, down from 2.6. Generators are also kicked 10% faster than before, 1.8 from 2. Again, not a balance thing. This is a presentation, psychology, control field thing. Many killer kick animations are not synced on the feedback of when they're done. You will let go of your button too soon because the animation is finished. You've gotten the result before the gosh darn bar fills. I am begging behavior that they took the opportunity, now that they are fiddling with the times, that they also fix the animation. I don't usually go into the details of how this stuff would be done technically, but this is one that I always had. If I ever had some time free, I wanted to come back around and fix this, because the time it takes to fill the bar, you can have that take a certain part of the animation, and then it locks in, and then you could have the animation properly cake and finish and let you leave. That kind of thing is doable. Anyway, I'm just hoping, praying, that as part of this timing update, because they would have had to make some adjustments, I believe, to make this still look good. If they just left it alone, then what we might see on the PTB is just the animation being sped up and still being just as out of sync, and I'm just hoping that's not what happens. Fingers crossed. While these changes may seem small, they don't seem small to me. A fraction of a second can be the difference between hitting a survivor and them reaching a pallet. Now, for historical purposes, I must point out that this is not the first time that these seemingly very base values have been lowered. Back in the day, the perk Brutal Strength gave you, if I remember correctly, a 50% bonus to these speeds on a base time of, I believe it was 3 seconds for a pallet break back then. 40%? Fair enough. Now, I do remember that Brutal Strength was nerfed, but the difference was split, so that all that really happened was that the baseline came down. 40%? There you go. So that was too much. So the baseline time was brought down and the bonus was brought down. This was before Almo's time, yeah. So here we are again. Though this time we're not seeing a related nerf to the perks that give you a bonus here. We're just saying these things take a little bit less time now. We want to give killers a slight edge in situations. We want to see them win a little bit more in these encounters. I'm not against this on principle. It's a very bold move that we're just going to have to see how it plays out. This isn't like a bold move cotton thing. I'm legitimately curious to see how it's going to play out. This bit is also wild. Reducing the cooldown on the successful basic attack base. Now we're in completely uncharted territory. This is stuff that has never been done. This is stuff that I wouldn't have been bold enough to venture into, because I think that the the base blade wipe time was kind of like one of the ingredients of the secret sauce that made Dead by Daylight work when it launched, that were not necessarily 100% intentional. Some of the values that were there worked out well. I'm not gonna say by accident, but were stumbled upon and worked and kept. And things like, how fast the killer and the survivor move, the 4.6 to 4 ratio. That one was iterated on. but in like the very, very early prototyping days. By the time I joined the project in August of 2015, the speed ratio of killer to survivor of 4.6 to 4 had already been settled on before any of the other game mechanics were settled. So stuff like how long does the killer wipe last, and like how long does the survivor speed boost last, these are kind of like almost as fundamental as that, haven't been messed with since the dawn of time. Now these are fairly small numerical changes, but these are a lot of core numbers that are being tweaked at the same time. So it might end up being hard to isolate their individual effects because so many confounding variables are changing at the same time. That being said, those are changes that I'm curious to see the effect of. The next one, I'm sorry, I'm just not happy to see it. Straight up. Bloodlust triggers faster than before. Bloodlust 1 triggers the same time, 15 seconds of chase, but Bloodlust 2, which is twice as much, that's a 0.4 meters per second bonus, triggers at 25 instead of 30 seconds, and the tier 3, a 0.6 meter per second boost, triggers at 35 instead of 45 seconds of chase. So, I'm not happy to see it, personally. I went back and forth on Bloodlust a few times. There have been times where I thought it should go completely, though over time I mellowed out a little bit and felt like it was really not the... It wasn't the catch-up mechanic that I would like to see, but it was basically the only one that we had. It is like a safety valve for infinites in a way. I mean, we don't have the old school infinites anymore, but it did lend some sort of ultimate inevitability that, you know, a killer could throw essentially to catch this one guy if they find some extremely annoying way to waste the killer's time. Yes, the killer can get to them eventually via this mechanic if they decide that is worth doing. I did eventually get won over by Bloodlust 1. I still feel conflicted, but I do at least now feel roughly equal amounts of reasons why it's probably good to have it around. As I do reasons why I'm frustrated by its existence and wishing that the sort of like long chase mechanic was something different. It was originally kind of targeted at the infinites, at kind of like very repetitive gameplay of looping the same tile over and over again. And I feel that the detection for the kind of long looping chase that the killer would want, that we would want to cut a bit shorter, could have been more targeted, right? It could have been, oh, like you're doing a lot of moving, but you seem to be going in circles, or like, you know, seeing this guy do a certain number of things. You know, oh, if you see a survivor hop through windows, then you activate Bloodlust. Something along those lines, rather than simply seconds of chase. But that's not the way things went, and that was a long time ago. So, that being said, I do not have the same kind of mellowing in opinion about Bloodlusts 2 and 3. You might not realize this, but Bloodlust values were cut in half about a year after Bloodlust came out. I believe all tiers were double what they currently are. So that was a win, although I suspect that a lot of opinions had already been crystallized. Opinions about Bloodlust had been crystallized at the original values. So like the way that people feel about it, the way that content creators would talk about it, whether they realized it or not, I think that they were talking about feelings that they had while Bloodlust was double what it currently is. Tier 1 Bloodlust was why 0.2? Thank you, Grimmy. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if Tier 1 was included in there. It has been a long time. My apologies. So yeah, if you ask me what change I would make to Bloodlust today, it would be don't make tiers of it. Have it be a game mechanic that activates after X seconds of chase and you get a little speed boost or something, fine. I think that the stacking of Bloodlust, I am curious as to why we would like to make this a thing that happens more often. Tie into this, it could be an attempt to reduce situations probably more for newer players or less experienced or players who aren't quite as good at killers who are more likely to get into a situation where they're chasing a survivor and just can't seem to reach them because the survivor is better than them. If you do get to a very high tier of Bloodlust, it becomes a lot easier to catch up to somebody. However, I would imagine, unfortunately, that this very same player that the change is targeted at, the player that this is for, is also very likely to be unaware of the gameplay actions that they will do that will reset Bloodlust. They are not told what resets Bloodlust. They might not be aware that Bloodlust exists. If they do know that it exists, they might not realize that breaking a pallet resets it, or that pulling out their power for most killers resets it. There was a time when you could watch your Bloodlust meter build. Personally, I hated it. It was a constant reminder of what I didn't want to happen building up. It did have the advantage of letting you know what the effects of your actions had on the mechanic, making it a bit less inscrutable. That's a good question, Liquid. And I think it's a pretty fundamental game design issue. Which is that if you say, oh, well, this is training wheels for new players, it is equally valid to say that it is a punishment for players who leave the rank. Why would I want to proceed through the rank if all I get for it is being punished, is by having my mechanic taken away? Remember being able to rev Billy Saw in game Bloodlust? Yes. I'm not saying that that was necessarily good or anything. I just think that it is, it's bad that your Bloodlust progress can reset and that you won't even realize. Old Bloodlust values 0.2, 0.6, 1.2. Nice, Grimmy. Old Bloodlust was insane. There was a fantastic bug that happened. I think this was probably around winter 2017, although I'm not sure. It's hard for me to remember exactly when these things happened now. There was a bug with the display of the Bloodlust level. It would bug out and show you like Bloodlust 4 for sure, possibly even Bloodlust 5. But it was a visual bug in the icon only. However, players would get there and they'd be like, oh, check it out, I'm going so fast, oh my god, and like we're freaking out and like showing off the like ridiculous Bloodlust 5 movement speed. And I was like, hold on a second, and I went and I checked, and like they were just discovering truly what Bloodlust 3 really was. In a way that they just never bothered to, I guess. The psychology of the thing is always quite interesting, you know. It's like telling kids that they're drinking wine when you give them wine coolers and watch them all act drunk. It was just like that, you know. You give the kids Bloodlust 5 and you watch them act like assholes. Good times. I'm never going to finish this list of perks. We're gonna be streaming all night. Camping, and we haven't even gotten to the perks. Fuck my life. Camping and tunneling. On the survivor side, there's a clear preference for perks that grant a second chance. Borrowed Time, Decisive Strike, Dead Hard. Perks of that nature help a survivor avoid certain death, leading to an extreme usage rate. A benefit of the second chance perks is how they help prevent unfun situations, namely being camped or tunneled out of the game. Repeatedly being targeted after being unhooked. I appreciate... Hold on. I want to take a moment. I want to take a moment to point out something about this dev update, which is how well it is written. And one of the details here is the fact that they are using community terminology, words that community came up with. Behavior are not the ones who called things camping or tunneling or anything like that. So they're using the community terminology because it's most likely to be understood, but they're also providing definitions for them, which is not only useful for people who have never heard these words, aren't really sure what they are. It's great for those people. But I think it also helps because even people who know more or less what it is can project a lot of personal stuff onto these words. So being very clear about your definitions, I think is really helpful when talking about this sort of stuff in general. So I'm really appreciating seeing it here. Side note over. Moving forwards, survivors will receive a 5-second endurance effect after being unhooked. This gives the unhooked survivor an opportunity to reach a nearby window or pallet, or for another survivor to position themselves for a protection hit. Additionally, the unhooked survivor receives a 7% haste effect for 5 seconds. This will make them harder to catch and encourage killers to shift focus to the unhooking survivor. Something that immediately jumped out to me about this is that it also will make it exactly obvious when the endurance runs out for the unhooked survivor, in case killers were having trouble counting to 5, which I wouldn't put past some people. Alright, catch you later, Ethan. Thanks for stopping by. So both of these effects will be cancelled prematurely if the unhooked survivor performs what we now call conspicuous action. This was inevitable. Once we started talking about this, if you do this thing, then you've done game progress, so we should cancel some effects. I'm glad that they finally collated this all together and gave it a name. Yeah, repairing a generator, healing yourself or others, cleansing, blessing totems, sabotaging a hook, unhooking others, opening exit gates. All of that stuff. The stuff that would turn off Decisive Strike. We've given them a name. It's a category. It's doing useful game stuff. Finally, opening a gate counts too is pretty dumb for DS. I haven't gotten there yet. I didn't read it. I'm going to assume that Decisive Strike has been updated to use the same list of conspicuous actions. Unhooking yourself gives you a haste effect? I don't know. I hope so. It seems pretty cool. Good point on the haste. You'll be able to tell if it's been extended too by the new borrowed time. Does the new borrowed time also grant the time for the same amount of, grants haste for the same amount of time? I haven't gotten there yet. It extends it by 10 seconds. The endurance and the haste? Yes? Okay. So okay, let's talk about that now then. I think this is very good. I'll explain why. The thing about borrowed time was it works best when sometimes it's round and sometimes it's not. You kind of want that. Okay, so here's the moment that we're trying to create. I'm saying we very generally. As a killer, you have the opportunity to smack the unhooked player, and you don't know whether they're going to have endurance or not. It might be worth it, it might not. It's a gamble. It's a interesting and important choice. So just making borrowed time baseline, weaker or stronger or whatever, and then making borrowed time do something else would remove the unknown aspect. It would remove the gamble. If what you have now is a case where it's 5 seconds without borrowed time and 15 seconds with borrowed time, that's back. There's that 10-second window where you're going to wonder, like, can I hit him? But you won't know. I think that's very cool, actually. 6 seconds base plus 6 seconds from borrowed time be better? Maybe. Like I said, I don't feel qualified, or like I'm not playing enough, and I don't have the numbers in front of me to really come down hard on any specific values. Is 12 seconds better than 15 seconds at this point? Honestly, I'm just no longer the right person to make that call. So I can only really look at it from a bit of a higher level design perspective. Yeah, so the other important thing, the other important thing about those sort of does he have it or does he not with the perk thing is that it works only when the perk is being run a certain amount of time, a certain amount of, like a certain percentage of run rate, I'm going to say. If the perk is never run, then there's no real gamble there, it's never going to happen. If the perk is always around, it collapses the other way, it's not an interesting gamble because they always have it. So you kind of want something in the middle. I'm not even going to say a 50% chance, because that means that a perk is being run too often, right? This made a bit more sense when there was like 30 perks to choose from, but when you're looking at, like, I don't know, how many survivor perk options there are now, 100,000? Expecting that one perk has to be around like 30 or 40% of the time to do its proper effect on the game as a whole is too much, right? That's asking a perk to have too high of a pick rate to do what it needs to do. So the fact that a lot of the weight was lifted from this perk borrowed time's shoulders and put into the base game is good. It doesn't have to be around quite as much. The fact that ideally the bonus that it offers should be tweaked to the point where you do get the run rate where it'll be an interesting thing. Ideally, you'd probably want it to be around less often than it is around. So a sort of like a pick rate in like the, I don't know, 10 to 30% or something like that. Enough that it's always kind of like, maybe he has this, but not so much that like it happens more often than it doesn't. Now, Liam and Mackie are making good points here, where with the current value that it has, plus 10 seconds, that still offers a heck of a lot of value, right? It ends up being stronger overall than it was before, right? Unless I'm misremembering, current live borrowed time offers you a 12-second endurance. This one offers you 15. Like, that's... a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, cool. My borrowed time got buffed. Sick, right? So, probably, I'm... just from like a philosophical perspective, I'm in agreement that it seems perhaps like 10 seconds is too much. There you go. Scott's dreaming dev update got ass kicked by behavior. I mean, this is bolder than what he proposed, yeah. So here's a pretty sick graph. This is MMR versus pick rate. As you can see, At high MMR, basically every survivor was playing dead hard. So, I mean, that's kind of a problem. Nothing else was even close. Look at Spine Chill, though. It is very cool to see the handful of perks that just skyrocketed along with MMR. Like, these are the perks that carry you to a high rating. Look at this graph. What's this? Number of loadouts. Are these just two different sets of perks? Oh, these are the killer ones. I'm such a fucking idiot. Why is locked? Hold on. Am I an idiot? Why is locked on the killer graph? This big guy is locked. But locked is not on the survivor graph. Did they clean locked off of the survivor data? But anyway, whatever. A bit surprised to see the Hex Rune is still so far up there. All right, let's get into it. So we already talked about barbecue and chili. I'll just speed run through my notes. Hard time differentiating colors. Yeah. Data viz is a difficult area. Original Hex Rune was the best. Wish it was never changed. Somebody ban this man. Ban him? Never let him back? Never... Never make my chat worse again. Original Hex Ruin, I think, was what radicalized me to psychology over power level. Because the old Hex Ruin, if you were a gamer who hit all of your great skill checks, oh, it does nothing. You just power through it, no problem. And yet somehow, it was causing more grief than any other modular piece in the game. And it is my theory that the reason why Hex Ruin caused so many problems was not because it was too strong, winning too many matches, but rather because it was psychologically aggressive. It was constantly in your face. You couldn't ignore it. Every single time you got a skill check, and as a survivor, you're often repairing generators, getting skill checks, you get that big, aggressive, hexed skill check. So if you don't like the perk, unlike other perks that might annoy you when a killer is playing them, you're not reminded of them so aggressively, so frequently. Maybe you think about it, or you see them pull a thing off now and then, you're like, oh, that's annoying. This one reminded you of its cursed existence at every single skill check. So not even from a power level perspective, but rather just from like a player psychology, how does it make people feel? I think was the primary issue with old Hex Ruin and why it had to be changed. Maybe that sounds too wishy-washy and too hand-holdy for you, but I believe that the game designers in a game like this are walking a fine line where they have to create some kind of antagonistic, scary / stressful situation that at the end of the day, people still want to keep playing. It's a tough line to walk. You do want to push things that are, it isn't like an oppositional game. It's there's competition happening between the two sides of the match. But there are ways to make this, to avoid unnecessary frustration. Yo, Snake, earlier today I was out washing my car with my son. It was going fine until eventually, after a while he looks at me and he says, "Dad, can you just use a sponge?" So, barbecue and chili. I'm going to speed run the discussion that we had earlier tonight. The thing about barbecue and chili is it's losing the double blood point. Right? Well, thank you for the hydration, Goes. Am I going to be uploading a video of my thoughts to YouTube? Yeah, I think this one's going to go on YouTube. Say hi to YouTube. I guess this is going to be a two-parter. Barbecue and chili was the flagship marquee blood point perk. Despite being pretty strong and very, very popular, and I'm sure it had a very high pick rate, primarily, like above all things, due to its just straight up doubling how many blood points you get. Liam, you're gonna break my stride. What do you call a arrogant prisoner going down the stairs? It's a condescending. So, okay, so right, so we have this flagship blood point perk, and I think the reason why it was tolerated is that it promoted, perhaps better than any other perk in the game, it promoted healthy behaviors. It promoted leaving the hook because the survivor auras are shown, and they're only the far away ones are shown. So you're not promoting going and hitting the guy who was nearby hoping for the save. It was promoting going across the map or whatever to deal with the people on the generator they don't want to pop or something like that. Good. Promoting behavior that we like to see. And it also promoted cycling which survivors you hook. It didn't mean that you couldn't hook the same guy twice in a row, but suddenly you felt like there was a reason why you might want to go for another guy immediately instead of focusing on the same survivor twice, which, by the base game mechanics, is very clearly the best thing for you to do. I think that it also revealed that people just love putting together stacks on a perk. There has to be some kind of payoff, but in general, what we discovered was that perks that gain stacks for some kind of payoff are very popular. People love getting stacks, right? It's like a little mini game, a little quest, you know? And that tickles people's brains in a good way. So I think that's very good. Doubling the blood points outside of the context of the blood point category caps was problematic. People needed the points. The progression had a problem, and this was the best tool that they had to deal with it. But it warped the entire progression meta around itself. Not running barbecue meant progressing your characters at half the speed. That was clearly just not healthy. The first change that's required to change that has happened. The progression changes that cuts down the time required to get the perks that you're looking for so dramatically that you no longer need to lean on something that doubles your progress. Good. However, by removing this bonus, they've also completely removed the non-tunneling, the anti-tunneling incentives from the perk. And, I think, missed the opportunity to use the previous flagship Bloodpoint perk to reintroduce the new philosophy for Bloodpoint bonuses, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Previously, the only Bloodpoint bonuses that mattered to anybody were those like Party Streamers, Barbecue and Chilli, or We're Gonna Live Forever, because they would double your points and exceed the caps per category. There were lots of other effects strewn through the game that were trying to give you extra points for doing fun little things. An example that I keep coming back to is the Nurses add-on where people scream and give you points when you blink through them, or Billy's Speed Limiter, which gives you double points for chainsaw events. Those things are cool, but they're going to be ultimately irrelevant because you cannot get more points than normal out of a match with them because of the cap per category. I think that made it very clear that it was that cap that really was the problem here, and that by removing that cap or altering that cap or moving these bonuses into a uncapped bonus category, they could be relevant without having these ridiculous point doubling effects. I think that getting extra blood points is still fun and still relevant now that the progression overall grind has been reduced, but these kind of like these single elements that would double your points gained were too warping. Getting like an extra like 1,000 points for doing a thing is still very fun. The encouragement not to camp is gone. The encouragement not to camp's not gone. You still get an aura on somebody that you might want to go and chase who's far away. I would say it's the anti-tunneling that got severely weakened. Hold on, I need some music. Right. So, I think that it is a very unfortunate missed opportunity that Barbecue and Chilli wasn't changed to introduce like a new philosophy for blood point bonuses. Give them, I don't know, here's 1,000 points for getting the survivor for the first time. Like, show people what blood point bonuses should look like. And most importantly, keep that thing around where it incentivizes people to hook somebody for the first time. Still give this quest, right? The 4 stacks means you hooked each person. You feel like you did something that mattered. That's good. Heck, how about this? Instead of 1,000 points each time you hook somebody new, make it like a really big bonus. Something that'll make people sit up and notice. 5,000, 10,000, but you only get it when you get your 4th stack. So that's a non-gameplay stack incentive that I think might matter. Here's a quest. Hook each person once. Bam. You get some blood points. Way to go, bud. It has to be a number that matters. Alternatively, like we discussed earlier, we could drop the thing about blood points. It's not necessary. I think this is because of its status as previously like the flagship marquee example of Bloodpoint perk. It's the best place to put like a new version of Bloodpoint bonuses. But if we're not going to do that, at the very least, it should have some kind of gameplay incentive for hooking a person the first time, building your stacks. I saw some suggestions from chat that I really liked, like increasing the duration of the aura read, for example. You don't care about blood points? That's fine, then you don't care about blood points. Alright, moving along. Hex Ruin. Current effect. Generators regress automatically at an increased rate whenever a survivor is not working on them, as long as the associated Hex totem is standing. So, a massive part of Hex Ruin's appeal is not having to stop and kick generators, as well as the ability to passively regress them from a distance. These aspects make Ruin a unique slowdown perk, so we're not looking to change them. To bring Hex Ruin in line with other perks, we're going to reduce the regression speed to only 100%, down from 200%, so it's just regular old kick speed. And that's a that's a huge change. I would be okay if we stopped here. This will reduce its power without destroying its primary appeal. Agreed. After a survivor is killed, Hex Rune will automatically deactivate. To be honest, this part I'm not thrilled about. I think that it clashes a bit with the concept of a hex. There is already a way to turn this off. And if the idea here is to imagine the situation where a survivor dies early, and now it's going to be very unlikely that there's going to be someone extra to find the totem and all that kind of thing, I think we're kind of going down a rabbit hole where there are a lot of game situations that get bad for survivors when they lose a survivor. The change from 4 to 3 survivors is the turning point in a game of Dead by Daylight in a way that we all know it's fundamental. And I don't know if we want to start seeing a whole lot of perks come in where they sort of like turn off after this turning point. I could imagine new perks that are built around this concept. For example, if it wasn't a hex, I could imagine kind of like something that's like a hex idea but different, of a perk that's around for a certain time. Some sort of perk that comes in and offers you a very strong bonus until a survivor dies is actually an interesting space to design perks in. Isn't Dying Light like that? Yeah, I guess. But it seems to clash really badly with the concept of the hex perks, which are very strong effects that last until a totem is destroyed. Like there's already the system to limit the power. And I also want to make a mention of the compounding psychological effect of changes. Let's say you like Ruin and you're disappointed to see it's changed. Humans are emotional creatures first. We process the emotional stuff before we do some slow thinking about what numbers mean. So the first thing that's going to happen when you read this is that you're going to see the thing is knocked down, number go down, and then you're like, I hope there's something to compensate for that. So it's like, evening it out. Strong part gets weaker, but weaker part gets strong. And then you read the next line, and it's kick them while they're down. Before you even get to what the numbers are or whether they're justified or not, you get the psychological compound effect of the double tap, kicking them while they're down, making you feel like it was going to be hard to justify playing your favorite thing, and then the deal was sealed. There's no way. Just because there's 2 bad things right after another. Which, even if the numbers meant that it wasn't as big a deal as one large change, just the fact that there are 2 negative changes and no positive changes makes it a much more bitter pill to swallow. So most of the nerfs are like that. That's something I'm not super stoked about. I wonder if it could be that while working on these perks, there were multiple. There's always multiple concepts that come out, and maybe sometimes, smaller versions of 2 changes were taken instead of a large version of 1 change. And I think that maybe the balance is still there, but from a psychological perspective for players, it's going to feel a lot worse that way. So what do we got? Pop Goes the Weasel. Previously, after hooking a survivor, the next generator you kick within the time limit instantly loses 25% of the progress. Pop Goes the Weasel now gives a killer. It gives killers a controlled way to remove significant progress from a generator of the choosing. Given that kicking a generator now removes 2.5% of the progress by default, we decided to tone down some numbers to compensate. This perk will now remove 20% of the generator's current, not total, progress. Yeah. So not super stoked about that either. This is another 1-2 punch, where just toning down the number to account for the baseline change, understandable, or you leave the existing number, but you change how that number is applied, the current to total, which is, by the way, a huge change, right? That means if like what your average case is kicking a gen that's like half done, you're already only getting half of the value from it, right? The perk was already kneecapped. So it leaves me wondering, why did they make number go down as well as having the slightly more cerebral aspect of also like having its halving its average performance? I would think that you leave number as is, or even, bear with me, make number go up a little bit. The number is 25, but you make it 30. So, oh, that feels like a buff. But then you explain, but also now this scales based on how much progress has been done. Now, at least what you give people is sort of a mixed bag that you're then going to have to, the emotional thing is a mix, and then to try to figure out whether this is good or bad, you got to put your thinking cap on. And at that point, you're thinking. You're going to have less of an emotional response and more of like, in this case, it's better in this case, and worse in that case, and then that's fine. I think that's the headspace you would rather have players in when they're evaluating changes. Kicking at 50% gen for 12.5% progress, right? Like it seems, yeah. Or you make pop token base so you can at least wait for the late kick. Yeah. This seems like a situation where you gotta give them something here. I think that the big mechanical change, justifiable, but I don't think it should be packaged with just a straight up number go down nerf also. That one, it leaves me being like, I wonder why it's like that. Kicking at 50% gen will be only 10% progress lost now. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Corrupt intervention. And to be clear, I think it's okay that these perks all got overall weaker, considering that killer base mechanics all got buffed, right? The amount of time that generators take to complete was increased. The speed at which killers destroy pallets and walls and wipe their weapon to get back in, that stuff has been decreased, and the amount of time the survivor runs extra fast at being smacked. It's like all that stuff broke in favor of the killer. So it's okay that the killer's strongest stuff in terms of perks gets weaker. That's okay. Perks are probably overall a bit too strong. Like they have probably a bit too much of an effect on the outcome of match compared to the base mechanics as it is. It's just when you're reading these changes and like you want people to read them and be excited about them, the compound nerfs, they read... I think the changes would be better received if you made the perk weaker, but didn't have these like compounding nerfs in the same paragraph, essentially, I guess is what I'm trying to get to. I don't think once you've done the change to scale the amount of progress lost, what is the point of that extra little 25 down to 20%, considering that the meaning of that number has already changed? Why make number go down? Do we lose more survivor seconds per second? Now that's an interesting point. 20%. So let's take a look at what 20% of 90 looks like compared to 25% of 80. So it's still weaker, 18 seconds off of 90 instead of 20 seconds off of 80. So, yeah. it'd be easier to accept if it was like, oh yeah, we wanted to keep it baseline the same at the top, so we chose a new percentage that makes it so that you lose the same like 20 seconds or so. But that didn't happen. Instead, it just got weaker all around. And let's be honest, the average case now is going to be way lower. Every time you kick a generator that's like half done, you're only getting 10 seconds out of it. So Pop Goes the Weasel has been dramatically gutted. If you include the 2.5%, let's put that in there. So it's not 20%, it's 22.5.
Nurse.
Yeah, you get the 20 seconds.
Flashlight.
You get it.
We got it, baby. Isn't that sick?
22 wowzers. I for one really like the changes.
What's up, Mr. Mello? I think that as a whole, this is very positive. It is really good that this patch is happening. If you're going to take anything away from this little talk that we're having, it's that I'm very happy to see this patch. Things are moving in a good direction. I'm here to nitpick tiny details and say I would rather this detail be like this than like that. Overall, I think it's really good that they're coming out big and strong and shaking things up, and a lot of these are very, very good changes. The progression stuff, I don't even have any notes, honestly. It's like perfect. We're just getting finicky because we can. Why not? It's the internet. We're here to bitch about tiny little details. Anyway, if we include that 2.5% base regression, you get 22.5%. 22.5% of the new 90 seconds means that if you're kicking a generator, which is like almost complete, you're going to get the same 20 seconds off. With the old situation as the new situation. They probably could have put that in there explicitly to sell the change. I still think it would be a misdirection from the fact that the average case has been gutted. Yo, Chris, when does a joke become a dad joke? When it becomes apparent. Corrupt intervention. Currently, the 3 furthest generators are blocked for a while. Wait a minute. It's more than 3, isn't it? I thought it was only 3 are unblocked. It is 3? Oh shit. Yikes. Cool. The perk makes the beginning of a match more manageable, forcing survivors to extend deeper into the map before repairing a generator. We aren't looking to change this aspect. Moving forward, the perk will deactivate once a survivor enters the dying state. We believe this change will keep corrupt intervention effective in helping the killer build early game pressure while providing a limit to its power. Old Sunday morning add-on analysis vibes? Oh wow, yeah, that was a long time ago. Alright. Now, I don't want to draw too many strong conclusions, but between this and Hex Ruin turning off if somebody dies, it feels like a concept is creeping in to turn off killer powers if the killer starts to succeed. I'm going to reserve judgment on that. This is only 2 changes. We're going to see how it goes. But it's definitely gotten my attention. I'm not gonna say this perk's dead or anything, but I'm gonna say my personal jury's out. There's still, I mean, it's still useful, right? I mean, usually you want this perk such that you can get it down in this early part of the game, and I guess you don't need it after that so much because you've already found a new way to get your pressure. You have a survivor down, right? You're gonna do a hook, whatever. I'm not so concerned about this change as like wondering what it means for the future. Don't like your ruin idea? What was your ruin idea? I can't read everything all at once. What if ruin has a maximum amount of charges to regress, like 90, and once it has regressed 90 charges, it just can't start the regression anymore. But you can recharge it by 30 charges with every hook, so it can turn off as a hex, but also turn back on. Yeah, I mean, it kind of sounds like it's getting a little overly complicated at that point. If you wanted to have some kind of interesting turning off and turning on stuff, well, at that point, it kind of sounds like it doesn't want to be a hex perk anymore. It wants to be a perk that has some kind of token or charge-based mechanic. And that maybe it's too much to have it be a hex and also this other stuff. If you don't down someone, will the gens ever unblock? I'm guessing that it's a timer, and the timer immediately completes if a survivor goes down. You feel like it punishes the killer for an early down? You're not punished. You just don't get any more value out of the perk once you got the one down, I guess. It's a limit to how much value you get out of it. If the gens never unblocked, survivors cannot power the exit gate. You know, well, there's a good point. Yeah. So Tinkerer. When a generator reaches 70% progress, receive a loud noise notification and become undetectable for a short duration. Tinkerer is a popular choice for the information it provides. Being able to prevent a generator from being powered is a game changer, particularly on killers with high mobility. It can, however, become a little oppressive when paired with certain regression perks. Therefore, Tinkerer can now only activate once per generator. But with the base charges increased to 90, killers will have extra time to approach. Tinkerer can now activate only once per generator. In other words, if a generator gets to 70% progress, and you get there in time to stop it from being done, and you use Goes the Weasel on it, and it goes down below 70, and then it goes back above 80 again, Tinkerer will not trigger. This is... My initial read on that is okay. If you're coming at it from the perspective that Tinkerer and Pop, or Tinkerer and whatever regression of your choice, is too much, and is causing too much of a repetitive loop of a generator is almost done, you get there, you regress it, you chase off, it goes below, then it gets over the 70 again, you get the undetectable again, and like things start getting repetitive and bad, then yeah, this does address that problem. I think it still leaves it with a lot of use. It's not like it has its overall rating hasn't gone down by like half in my mind. Like for example, Hex Ruin. Hex Ruin lost half its power with the first numbers change, and then lost a whole bunch more of its power with the additional mechanical deactivation change. So like Hex Ruin, if you're trying to just like slap a number on it, whatever that number is, Hex Ruin's new number is like a third of the value of what it used to be. Tinkerer clearly is still like more than half as good as it used to be. So Hex, no one escapes death, or NOED for short. Thank you whoever wrote this for trying to integrate the player lingo in a way that helps people who are and people who are not already familiar with it. Thank you for the posture check, Warm Ramen. For reference, I stream standing up, so I've already got some posture advantage over a lot of streamers. Okay, yeah, so what's the NOED change? Current effect. When the exit gates are powered, all survivors become exposed as long as the associated hex totem is standing. Apologies. This perk makes for a very effective comeback tool, although it falls out of favor in high-skill games. We like the way that NOED encourages survivors to preemptively cleanse totems. We're not looking to weaken its direct strength. Instead, survivors will now see the hex totem's aura within 4 meters upon activation, and the range will increase to 24 meters over the course of 30 seconds. We believe this change will keep NOED a strong choice for endgame builds, while encouraging survivors to find the totem in an attempt to get that last second save. I think this is pretty interesting. I know that I've never personally cared about NOED that much. I never play it myself, and when I do play Survivor, if somebody NOEDs me at the end of the game, I usually like kind of roll my eyes. Like, eh. I haven't really gotten into the habit of trying to play around it, be a totem hunter, that kind of thing. Which I could, I guess, if I wanted to. So maybe I'm not the target demographic for further changes to the perk. It's really good for solo players that usually leave teammates when they see NOED. Yeah, I do like that it gives players something to do. It encourages you, it gives you a goal, where it's a lot more reasonable to think that you might find the totem and do something about it once it's activated. Which is good because you want to avoid situations where players feel like they have no options. So, I agree. This is probably going to be a good thing for soloing. It's not time efficient to hunt for all 5 totems. It would... I guess it's... The value, the efficiency needs to be more enticing. A few perks started being introduced a while back that would make you feel good about spending some time to hunt some totems. Remember when Inner Strength was the hot healing perk? That's the right one, right? Gosh, I'm getting really bad at perk names now. And now everyone's keeping them up because of boons. Yeah, boons kind of fucked things up a little bit as far as that goes. I always thought that we kind of want to... It would be good to approach this from 2 directions, which is make survivors want to break totems more for various reasons, because it powers their perks, because it gives them points, and also introduce perhaps more killer effects that you want to stop from triggering at endgame by destroying all totems before endgame happens. Because asking survivors to break all 5 bones just to stop one perk puts too much emphasis on one perk. When there's 100 perks to choose from, you can't expect one perk, or you can't let one perk have such a warping effect on the whole game. Now, if there were a handful of perks that you could block out by destroying all 5 totems before endgame, or something that let's say that's active until all 5 totems are destroyed, or something like that. Basically, more reasons why you might feel like it is worth your time to find and destroy all 5 totems. It will feel like less of a drag. Anyhow. Consensus on this? It's whatever, it's probably fine. Pain Resonance. Current effect. Upon hooking a survivor on a Scourge hook, the generator with the most progress explodes, notifying the killer and losing a large chunk of progress. The most recent addition to the meta, Pain Resonance, allows the killer to remove a sizable chunk from the most progressed generator simply by hooking a survivor. A loud noise notification also allows the killer to disrupt the survivors before they can continue repairing. A jack of all trades of sorts, granting both a powerful aggression effect and crucial information. With that in mind, we're removing the loud noise notification. Instead of exploding, the affected generator will now spark upon losing progress, and survivors will no longer scream. We believe this will ensure pain resonance remains a strong aggression perk while limiting its informational aspect. I don't love it. I think that if a generator blows up and you know that survivors were on it, you're going to run over there and get back into a chase in a way that I don't think is bad. Telling the killer where to go to get back into the game for a chase, I think is good, actually. The game... It's not very healthy, as it turns out, to have a lot of time during a match of Dead by Daylight where the killer doesn't know where any survivors is and is just kind of wandering around. Probably to stop Dead Man Switch. Oh, yeah. Right. Probably should have written that out explicitly then. Because I'm pretty unconvinced by the informational aspect. To me, it's kind of like barbecue and chili, where it doesn't let you catch those faraway survivors, but it gives you a target of where you might go. Let's say, you know, you just hooked somebody, and you're like, well, what do I do now? If I don't know where anybody is, sticking around here until someone comes by is not that bad an option. If you do this, and you hear some people scream in the background, it's super satisfying when that happens. As a killer, you just love to hear survivor screams, right? So you lose that. But anyway, just like knowing, I should go over there. That doesn't let you catch these people right away. It just gives you a goal. You go over there. So I think that we're actually just losing something positive. As far as the Dead Man Switch combo goes, maybe we should address Dead Man Switch specifically. Why run any of the other information perks that don't regress when this does too? The information this gives is very specific. You only get that information if there were survivors on the most progressed generator. And you only learn about the fact that there were survivors there. You don't really know how many, unless I guess you can see like how many screams there were, if you can see the indicators. It doesn't tell you the whereabouts of any other survivors, and it doesn't give you aura reading on them to see where they go, like barbecue does. So it's a much weaker informational element, to the point where I feel like it was, other than the fact that it comboed disgustingly with Dead Man Switch, almost decorative. So I'm not super sold on this. You need to be working on the gen. Yeah, exactly. The survivors could let go a little bit until the hooking happens, right? Like, there were ways. I'm not sold on it. I'll say this one, not my fave. Would have rather they had not. Survivor meta perks. Getting into it. Dead Hard. Current effect, when activated, become immune to damage and dash a short distance. Dead Hard is by far the most used perk by survivors, and it's easy to see why. We fixed the bugs that made it fucking unusable and made you exhausted on the ground. E for exhausted on the ground. Now that it's fixed, turns out it was good the whole time, and the fact that it just never worked was the real problem. Sorry. So they finally bug fixed. It's just, how frustrating is it that a team put their heads together, smart people, designers, engineers, like, this is how it needs to work, and engineers are going to do a whole bunch of networking stuff and be like, okay, look, we don't have a lot of the same like deterministic networking framework that maybe some other online games have, so we're going to have to make sure that we're like very carefully using the prediction that we have and like the catch-up stuff that we have now to make sure that Dead Hard's going to work and you're not going to end up exhausted on the ground. And they did it. Mad Lads actually, as far as I can tell, fixed Dead Hard, right? Like, E to be exhausted on the ground stopped being a thing. And what replaced it was, Dead Hard's just fucking good. It's just, why wouldn't you run it? The only thing stopping it from taking over in the... Because Dead Hard's been around for a long time. David King came out, like, what, 2017, right? Like, the only thing stopping it from dominating was that it just didn't work half the time. It was always there, anyway. So you can either use it to dodge a hit, or for distance. If you use it for distance, there's not much the killer can do. So, Dead Hard will now provide endurance for 1 second when activated. If you time it right, it'll prevent the hit and gain a movement speed boost. This will remove Dead Harding for distance and make it solely used to dodge hits, which killers can anticipate and even bait accordingly. If you ask me, Dead Hard is going to be just as annoying as it was before. Maybe this isn't what you want to hear. It won't work on traps anymore. That's good. As soon as you're in range, or you're approaching range of your pallet, or your window, or whatever, you press E, and you get your free vault, you get your free pallet, you get whatever. So in terms of telling the killer to F off, and getting your E to outplay, I got my window, I got my pallet. In terms of, like you said, Bubbly Cuds, in terms of screwing over a killer power that has like a charge, it's still just as good as it was before. And with the slightly, it's increased, right, from half a second to a full second, meaning that as soon as you're roughly within 4 meters of your window, or whatever, you just, okay, press the button. I'm going to get there. They said there's an animation, so it has an activation time. You know, having an animation, unfortunately, does not necessarily mean that there's some sort of activation wind-up time. I mean, it has an animation right now, and it turns on right away. You probably walk the same distance in 1 second as the 0.5 dash. Yeah. So this one, I'm not convinced. Now, we haven't playtested it. They have. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm skeptical. I think it will still be a problem. I think it will still have a huge play rate. Pick rate, whatever. It may still be very frustrating to play against. If they do pull a Dead Hard, and you do hit them with the endurance, they're going to get a speed boost. So they're going to get a lot more value out of it than what you might see a lot these days of somebody using a Dead Hard kind of like out in the open, and then you just wipe and run over and hit them down. So in fact, your average out in the open Dead Hard is going to get a lot stronger. You do have to mend, so let's not completely disregard the fact that at some point you're going to have to pay the piper and spend some unproductive seconds mending. If we go back to the player psychology aspect, the time that a survivor wastes doing something like mending will contribute to them not doing generators fast enough, but it's not something that is immediately satisfying to the killer. So the killer's going to get the frustration of, I didn't get my hit, the survivor sped off. The fact the survivor later has to spend time not doing something is like interesting in a cerebral fashion, but the killer doesn't get anything emotional out of it. First version of Metal Man all over again. Ooh. have something there. Decisive Strike. Current effect. After being unhooked, Decisive Strike activates for some long-ass duration. When picked up, hit a special skill check to instantly wiggle free. Deactivates when used when performing various actions. I guess this is the new conspicuous actions. One of the Decisive Strike's main appeals is its efficacy at preventing tunneling. In light of the upcoming base game changes, we expect Decisive Strike to drop in usage slightly. For the most part, we find the perk to be healthy for the game and easily avoidable for killers who choose not to tunnel an unhooked survivor. That said, at the end of the match, there's often nothing the killer can do to prevent a survivor with Decisive Strike from escaping. Moving forward, Decisive Strike will now deactivate once the exit gates are powered. In addition, the stun duration has been reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. Oh, they're fucking with the Decisive Strike stun time again. We'll also be simplifying the description of the perk, saying that Decisive Strike will now be cancelled by conspicuous actions. I hope to gosh that there'll be reminder text what the conspicuous actions are. I don't know about this. Why do we need this? So yeah, there have been a number of changes where I'm like, here's a change, I like it. Here's another nerf. Why did you do both of these? Is kind of what it leaves me with. I'm not entirely sure. So to be clear, these dev blogs can't tell us everything that went into the thought process behind the changes. Like, it's trying to be concise, and quite often, you know, there is a lot of interesting discussion that goes on behind the scenes for changes and very specific interactions between things. Maybe we're just kind of like not seeing it. So when we're just reading a paragraph like this that all kind of like leads up to, you know, okay, so it's pretty good, we like it, but it has one particular problem, and here's a solution for that problem. Just in terms of like the way that this thing is written, you're like, oh, okay, so I totally understand now why you would do this. And then this kind of sneaks in, and you're like, wait, what? Maybe if, you know, the preceding paragraph had something to prime the reader's brain for the stun time change also, it wouldn't come as such a shock. But when you read through it like this, you're like, oh, okay, cool, got it. And then, what? Hold up. That is called burying the lead, because that's a bigger deal than all of this. This is something that applies to every instance of the perk's activation, whereas everything else was talking about fixing a corner case. He was 1,000% right. What did Ott say about this, Liam? Anyway. So yeah, I got questions. I'm wondering why this is here. Borrowed time. Survivors you unhook gain the endurance effect for a short duration, allowing them to ignore a hit that would otherwise put them in the dying state. Much like Decisive Strike, this perk gets much of its popularity by granting counterplay against a camping killer. Considering a lighter version of Borrowed Time's effect has been added to the Survivor's base kit, we need to update this perk accordingly. Borrowed Time will now extend the duration of the endurance effect of unhooked survivors by 6, 8, 10 seconds, and increase the movement speed bonus by 10 seconds for any survivor you unhook. These effects will be cancelled if the unhooked survivor performs a conspicuous action. While the overall duration with Borrowed Time is longer than before, we expect that having a lighter version in the base kit will cause the usage rates to drop. I don't know if that's going to happen. It might. I guess it remains to be seen how effective the 5-second base version is. Hey, Noobwater, don't call me Shirley. What will a trapper do if he gets DS'd for 5 or 3 seconds? Not a lot. A nurse or a blight, however, will just one blink or rush instantly after you, eating the DS and making DS useless, making the strongest killer stronger again. Yeah. My only note is that I would just slightly invert it, in that the perk is weaker against the stronger killers. It's a small difference, but it makes more sense to my brain that way. Yeah, if anything's going to reduce the borrowed time run rate, it's going to be the fact that survivors are going to have a new off the record. Which is like, thanks for your stupid borrowed time, but I'm going to have like 5 times the duration on my own personal perk. Get lost, nerd. We have deleted Iron Will. It's gone. I know it sounds like I'm being dramatic. I just think that reducing the volume of these sound effects doesn't do that much until you've turned them off completely. It doesn't do nothing. Against many players, it might make the difference between hearing it or not. But you don't know how many players it's going to have that effect for. And trying to put up some like hard numbers here of like 75%, like you'll be caught 75% less frequently or whatever. Like that doesn't fly. It could be that making this thing 75% quieter means that like 5% of people won't hear it now because they have worse hearing or worse headphones or something. An interesting thing is that now you can use Strider to basically put people back to like, yeah, I can hear them pretty well. I was happy leaving the Strider Iron Will wars where they were. At the very least now, Strider won't make the survivors sound louder to themselves anymore, which was dumb. So an iron-willed survivor won't know that a killer can actually hear them just fine. I guess I need to actually hear what 75% quieter grunts really sound like. If we could get some better information about maybe like how that translates maybe to like range of audibility, that's something you can work with, where it's like, oh yeah, maybe, you know, there were people who were able to hear you from like 8 meters unobstructed before, and now it's like 4. Like if you got numbers like that, it'd be a bit easier to parse. It's very hard to evaluate what 75% quieter really means. Human hearing doesn't even work on a linear scale. Human hearing is a log scale, right? So it's very hard to parse how valuable this is. Self-care unlocks the ability to heal yourself without a medkit at 50% speed. Although self-care has a divisive reputation among the community, we were surprised to find its usage peaks in highest skill matches. Having a consistent and reliable way to heal at will is a powerful tool in the right hands. On top of that, self-care increases the efficiency of medkits, allowing to survive. Oh wait, shit. Okay, I'm gonna finish reading this, but then I want to go back for a second. It increases the efficiency of medkits, allowing survivors to squeeze additional heals out of them. To reduce its strength, self-care's heal speed will be lowered to 35%, and the item efficiency bonus has been removed entirely. Hold on to that thought. We have another double whammy here, which was lowering the grunts of pain to 75%. We're like, okay, well, if you have to. Then, also, additionally, Iron Will is no longer active when exhausted, although it doesn't cause exhaustion. It does kind of feel to me that these were like 2 reasonable options, and then they were just combined. You might, If you were feeling less charitable, you might say this is an example of adding insult to injury. I don't know if I would go that far. I don't know if this was intentional or anything, maybe not. But yeah, it does seem like a lot of these changes are kind of like combo changes, which make them feel a lot harsher, maybe, than they would be if it was just one change, even if that one change was bigger. Nerfing self-care while keeping Circle of Healing as is insane. I mean, Circle of Healing is half the value that it used to have, so it's not like Circle of Healing was left alone. Is there a chance they drop one of these changes from PTB to live? A chance? Sure. Adjustments have been made from PTB to live before. It would surprise me, actually, if there were no changes to the perks between PTB and live. But don't get your hopes up too high about anything in particular, especially any change that would require a big mechanical change to how the perk works. It wouldn't surprise me to see some numbers change. It's entirely possible that you could see like maybe some of these double changes. It's not too hard to remove like an entire effect, let's say. What's hard is creating a new effect. Now, will behavior be convinced that any like double change is bad and maybe only one part of the change, like for example for Hex Ruin, will they be convinced of that from only the feedback from a PTB? Probably unlikely, at least not from a balance perspective, because you don't really get representative matches on a PTB. So if you're just talking about things like, oh, look at the kill rate, it's too high. From a PTB, no, I don't think that's going to happen. If there's like overwhelming community sentiment, you know, the forums are ablaze because this one change is just making people so angry, that can sometimes get people's attention, maybe a reevaluation. Sometimes it's, you know, community, you just kind of have to deal with it. Like, for example, when old Hex Ruin was being replaced with new Hex Ruin, while there was certainly a forum uproar, it was clearly the right choice to make. Now, in this case, it may actually be working against any particular change being changed, that there are just so many. It seems like it would be hard for any one particular change to generate so much attention to itself to outshine the others to get a critical reevaluation during the, mind you, very short time period that the developers have to make changes between PTB and live. I know that there's 2 weeks between PTB release, or 2 or 3 weeks between PTB release and live patch release, but that's not like 3 weeks to do development. The development time for the release branch has already mostly passed. You have to realize, before the patch can be released, it has to go through certification, and before it can go through certification, it has to go through bug testing. Before it can go through bug testing, you have to finish doing the features, and before you can finish doing the features, you have to finish designing the features, and before you can finish designing the features, you have to try to decide what changes you want to make. What does that mean? The decisions that will go into, like, the decisions to make a change between PTB and live have to be made, like, in the maybe handful of days right after the PTB. Otherwise, there's no way to get it in time. Hi, Bucky. Thank you for the evil kitty. Circle of Healing works on 4 and only one guy needs it. Oh yeah, I'm aware of the dynamic. I just mean, it would be disingenuous to say that Circle of Healing never got addressed. Don't forget the Ruin changed birth the popular ditty, Hex Ruin, You've Been Ruined. Who could forget? Okay, the self-care change. I don't know. I don't know about this. there's a lot to unpack here. Because we're going to have the discussion, self-care is good actually. Which, personally, I believe is true. I believe self-care was good actually. The time efficiency is there compared to having other survivors heal you. Because you can start it right away, you can start it whenever, you can do it in little chunks as soon as it's relevant for you. It's good, actually. Now, it's very easy to misuse. It's a very typical scenario to watch your teammates misuse self-care. How often do you throw Bond on and see your teammates self-caring in a corner and you're like, oh no, you're right? Like, so what they're trying to communicate here is that they found that while all that is true, self-care was still very popular among players who are quite successful, let's say at high MMR ratings. So it turns out, and this should not come as a surprise based on what we just said, people who are good at the game would also probably be good at knowing when to use self-care well. Now, the part that's going to be hard to convince the general community of is that not only was it good in the hands of good players, it was strong enough to warrant being changed. And perhaps is it only being changed because it was so popular, and one of the stated goals here is just to shift the meta. Even some things that are popular but fine, sweep them aside for a while and let other things be popular for a while. Which is understandably contentious if you have some of your favorites up there that you feel are getting the hammer for no real justified reason. That being said, I think that what we end up with here is too rough. We have another example of the double whammy change, where one or the other change would most likely have been sufficient, and instead we get both. So a 35% speed heal gives you 16 over 0.35. That is a 45.7 second heal. And I don't like that at all. Unfortunately, I think that this change makes self-care into what people thought it was. Right? It had picked up a reputation for being a killer perk that survivors run for the killer, which was probably unfair. Unfortunately, with the new values, it seems to me that even if you were previously using it well, now you really will be just handing it to the killer by using self-care. What will it be with sloppy? I'm trying to remember how these would get applied together. But we're talking about, with Mangled, thank you, Grimmy. So, yeah. I think removing the item efficiency bonus was fair. It wasn't there because the perk needed it for power reasons. It was there to try to like solve an awkward design situation where if you have the perk but you pick up a med kit, suddenly the perk is useless until you run out of the med kit or something like that. So it was to try to like give the perk a bit more use. Actually, it was trying to make it seem better, like more, make it seem more attractive. I think that element could easily have been discarded to stop potentially, like, if we're being real here, medkits in general are more of a problem than any of the healing perks. Medkits are very fast at healing. They let you heal yourself at full or faster than regular speed without needing another person. So, like, without even looking at the speed, like usually if you're thinking, oh, heal is 16 seconds, you've got to double that a little bit in your mind because it takes 2 survivors to do it. 1 to heal, 1 to be healed. Medkit not only let you do it at full speed, it lets you do it to yourself without needing another survivor. Some of those medkits let you do it way faster than regular speed. Medkit healing speed is what's kind of ridiculous if we're worried about how efficient it is to heal yourself. How little time you lose to get back to full health, so that you can kind of like, if a killer doesn't like down you, you can kind of like blank a long chase, whatever. So the fact that you could use self-care to get like a whole bunch more really fast heals out of a medkit was quite strong. Nerf medkits down to 35%. Now you're thinking, Polly. So to cap that off, I guess if you were to ask me to make a change to self-care, to maybe tone down its popularity without gutting it, I would say get rid of that medkit efficiency bonus. We don't need it. We never really needed it. It was when we were afraid that the perk wouldn't really be appealing because it takes so long to heal. I think that with the loss to the medkit efficiency bonus, and the fact that we're talking about a 45-second heal at baseline, there isn't really any justifiable use for this perk anymore. New Botany also has medkit efficiency removed, so that's nice. Good. I think we probably don't want all that extra medkit usage stuff around here anymore. So yeah, I'll say that on this one, I'm not really happy about it. Wouldn't it be faster to boon and heal than self-care? Let's see. The booning takes what, 16 seconds? And then the heal takes 32? So it takes about the same amount of time to do just a self-care compared to setting up setting up your circle of healing and then healing in it just once. Mind you, you have to find the total, so it's not directly comparable. Spine Chill activates when the killer is nearby and looking in your direction, increasing action speeds and a chance for skill checks. This perk excels at alerting survivors when a killer is approaching, and in high skill lobbies, the vault speed increase becomes the primary draw. Let's talk about that. There are a few aspects of the perk we'd like to clean up. Spine Chill will now only activate if the killer has a clear line of sight to the survivor. Dead perk. This will remove the awkward counterplay where the killer must look away to ensure a stealthy approach. That was cool counterplay. Next, we'll be adding a short lingering effect to Spine Chill, which will prevent the perk icon from flickering. That's fine. And make the action speed boost more consistent. That's fine. Finally, we'll be removing the vault speed bonus entirely as it does not suit the perk's nature. I'm mad. I'm mad. Like, we've talked about a lot of double whammy changes in this document, and this may be one of the most disheartening double whammies. Triple whammy? No. This is fine. It's line of sight and vault speed loss. Spine Chill changes disproportionately impact hard of hearing players. Straight up. The game has already accepted the idea that some accessibility issues are going to be addressed via perks in terms of hearing, in terms of things like being able to track. Like if you're not so good at that, there are perks for you. If you can't handle the field of view, there's a perk. Because these things offer gameplay advantages, they're handled through the gameplay advantage system. I've always been okay with this. Players who can't really parse the terror radius stuff using Spine Chill instead, I think is good. That specific example could be better handled through mobile, like what mobile has with giving you a visual indicator of being in the terror radius. But you should probably have that by this point. There should be a little icon when you're in the TR, honestly, at this point. But still, this is really rough. The requirement of line of sight just right off the bat means that this is not going to activate in the majority of situations where it used to activate. It no longer gives you information that you could not have by looking around. So if we're talking about like how much, like what percentage of the perk's value is lost, right? Like we kind of did that analysis on some of the perks earlier. This is a case where we are losing more than half of the perk's value. We are losing 80-90% of the perk's value. Which is, that's tough. And then if you're talking about a situation where, okay, well, it's only going to activate if the killer actually has line of sight on you, what is the situation that's left where it's good? It was that tiny little bonus to vault speed, which is so rarely relevant, but what's fun about it, there's a couple of reasons that I like that vault speed bonus. Reason number one, it's unusual. Straight up, you don't get many vault speed bonuses. And that comes from the fact that the vault speed originally came in as a mistake. For both Spine Chill and Resilience, a bug was introduced that removed the condition that specified which interactions were being sped up. So it sped up all interactions, including vaults which were not originally intended. That became pretty common knowledge amongst high information players. When we came in to fix that, we knew that players liked the fact that it gave a little vault speed boost. It is rarely relevant, but people love to chase the dream of it. We knew that. So when we fixed it, we added vaulting to the condition and added vaulting to the description. So that people who didn't read blogs could finally look at a perk and be like, oh, this gives me extra vault speed. Not much, but maybe it'll be important. I think my stream hiccuped. Let me know if I'm back. It's back? Cool, thank you. So what was left? The vault speed. Killers will typically be looking at you when you're getting that vault speed value. So if you were reading this and you're thinking, damn, that's cold, but at least it still gives me vault speed. You don't get the vault speed. What's the point? If the killer has line of sight, chances are you already see them. Yeah. This is a hard one. I don't want to be out here being unnecessarily negative. I think it's important after every nit that I pick, because this is mostly just nitpicking details, I would like to reiterate the fact that as a whole, this update seems very good, very healthy. The progression updates alone more than make up for any perk changes that I disagree with. So I don't want the takeaway to be former behavior dev rips behavior a new one, whatever. It's not what we're here for. I think this is a very good update overall. We're just kind of and since there are so many changes, right? I think some of these things are going to slip through the cracks, and that's what we're here for. We're here to look at little details and what I think could be done better. I believe in the overall direction for this update so much, and it is so nice to see them taking big swings, taking big chances, like really going hard, seeing what happens, and then for sure what we're seeing here is not like the final form. Now I don't know how long it'll take, but obviously a lot of these things will go out. We're gonna see what effects it's gonna have, and then they're gonna make new updates in light of that, and like ongoing balancing. It just keeps going. It's an ongoing process, right? So don't think that any of this is like set in stone, can never ever change again. So we're just here to look at them and be like, well, based on what's here, I think this could be better in this way. And this change to Spine Chill, I think, is one where I'm not into it. They could have made it so stealth killers didn't trigger Spine Chill. I agree. You could have added something in here where, yeah, like it doesn't trigger off of killers who are currently undetectable or something like that. I mean, I don't think that's perfect. I liked that undetectable had like some specific rules for exactly what it does. You know, undetectable is terror radius, aura, and red stain, and that's what it does. And we don't have to go down the rabbit hole of which other ways to detect that a player is there, make sure that they all get shut down if you're undetectable. It's a deep rabbit hole to go down. But if you need to make an exception, because a perk really needs it, it's okay to make an exception. Wouldn't this affect Deaf Survivor players? Absolutely. Until we get an accessibility option, which I truly believe should exist, to allow there to be a visual indicator for the terror radius. Mobile has it. I think that PC console should absolutely have something comparable. Until that happens, I think a lot of players were using Spine Chill to make up for it, and having it change before the accessibility option rolls out, I think is not great. Pre-undetectable tier 1 Myers didn't trigger it. I believe you're correct, yes. I had a pretty long debate with the designer once about whether Myers, after Myers was changed, because Myers tier 1 was its own special thing before, when undetectable was introduced, Myers tier 1 was changed to use it. And in that process, subsequently lost the not triggering Spine Chill thing in a streamlining process. At this point, I'm not going to spoil on which side of the debate I was. What would the icon be on? I don't know. From what I understand, it goes where rank used to go. It'll look something like this, but with a different icon and probably a more attractive number. Why'd you guys remove the About to Tier 3 Myers music? I don't know why it left. I don't know if it was an intentional balance change. May have been. That's a pretty deep and old change. It happened fairly soon after Myers came out. There's a piece of music from the original Halloween music called The Hedge, I think it's called. I'm probably going to get myself muted, but maybe I can give you maybe I can give you guys like 10 seconds of it. That, right? So before Myers would tear up, it used to play that. Yes, extremely cool. I don't remember exactly why it left. It may have been an intentional balance change because it was the warning that it gave survivors was too strong or something like that. It would have been nice to put the musical stinger in for some other reason, just for thematic purposes of being able to keep that super iconic sound in the game somehow. Give you the link for the rest? Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to blast your ears out with the music. Tear up imminent warning. No longer used. Nice, new water. Thank you. Horvath said the stinger alert disappeared from a bug, and then y'all decided to keep it for balance. Shit. It could be. Things were wild back then. Confused as to why borrowed time a meta perk is becoming base kit. So, just because something's a meta perk doesn't mean that the effect is bad for the game. Borrowed time had a very positive effect on the game as a whole, though the effect was better when the pick rate was in like the 20 to 40% range. If borrowed time is always around, it stops being interesting. There's no uncertainty about what's going to happen if you slap a survivor who got unhooked. So this is a way to keep something that is important to have, which is a little bit of unhook protection, and then let the perk offer a potential modification so that we still have that uncertainty. You'll know what happens if you smack a survivor who got unhooked in 5 seconds. But between that 5 and 15, then you're back to asking yourself, okay, but what's going to happen? Should I take the chance? Which is good. We like this. Where was I? All right. So I'm going to leave it here. It's 1:30 in the morning. I've streamed too long. I'm going to go try to take care of my real life and salvage my night and get some sleep before I go to work. I have a real job. We'll have to talk about the non-meta perk changes some other time. Maybe another stream. Maybe just in my Discord. If you liked this and you'd like to have discussions in this vein, hopefully a little bit more thoughtful, slow, nuanced, I do have a Discord that you're all invited to join. !Discord. I hang out there pretty frequently if you want to chat with me in a less high-stress environment than a live stream. You're all invited as long as you behave yourselves. !Discord, like I said, we have a thread running right now discussing all of these changes if you want to jump in and talk about them. Just be nice, there's some rules, follow them, and yeah, that's it for that. Let me see who else is streaming at this ungodly hour. Yeah, we're not here to dunk on behavior. Behavior's working hard. Behavior's doing a good job. When there's a bazillion changes, you're going to disagree with some of them. And, you know, they make a bazillion changes. Nobody bats 1,000, right? Some of them are going to be bad. It happens. I myself have worked really hard on stuff, and a few bad changes have slipped in. You know, like, it happens sometimes. So, you know, we're going to nitpick because we love. In the end, remember, these are the people who made this game that you love so much for you, and they really are doing their best. So give them a break. Maybe say something nice about them or to them. They're real human beings who appreciate that kind of thing. In fact, I'll take this one step further, which is that if you want to offer feedback, it's important to separate like how you feel about a change and like how you feel about the people making it. Something like, I don't like this change because of this and this and this, is going to go a lot further if a developer happens to be reading it than like, you know, I hate this behavior sucks. I hate this behavior sucks is just going to get tossed in the trash of feedback. It's not useful. But like somebody who seems like they want to like something and can't because like of certain problems that it seems to have, that kind of feedback is very valuable. So if ever you're writing something and I don't know, maybe hoping that someone responsible will see it, either the developers or like community managers who are trying to collect feedback or something, like a very good sort of like even-tempered, well-written post that like explains why you feel the way that you feel in a way that does not trying to attack the developers to get like points and backslaps from other people on forums or whatever. That's the kind of thing that goes a lot further. So, reminder that Dead Man Switch isn't changed. See, that's good feedback if you can maybe write up an explanation of like what the problem is with it and like why you think that it ought to be changed. Could be useful. Don't follow it up with and behavior sucks for not having done it. Then you kind of lose all the points. Anyway, I was looking for a raid target. What have I got? Frisk? Frisk is playing. Let's try that. Well, I don't know if that's like a good stream to raid, actually. I don't know what like the rules are here. It's like a follower only thing. I guess we're gonna find out. I gotta go to bed, so here we go. Hold on. Hold on. Wait for it. Wait for it. I'm outie. Bye, guys.